Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel. And many of you have been asking about Huba, Hummingbird. I wanted to give you an update. I'm not in town right now, so my mom sent me some pictures of her sticking the camera in the nest, and there was nothing in there. Now, she thought she saw like an eggshell on the edge of the nest, but there was nothing on the ground underneath the nest, indicating that there was any foul play. Because I asked her, I said, look down on the ground underneath the nest, because any predator that would have gotten up there would have, knocked the egg over or the nest over. So I don't think any predators got in there. And then a couple of you said, well, maybe, a bird snatched the eggs out of the nest. But I don't think that happened either, because, again, it would have knocked the nest over, or the eggshells would have been knocked over, or something like that. There was none of that going on. So my guess is that I got the timeline wrong, and they actually hatched and flew off before my mom got the camera on them, which was pretty quick. I mean, it wasn't the full 2 weeks that it normally takes, the babies to hatch and then fly away. So I hope they're okay. I'm a little bummed that we didn't get to get that on camera, because I was all set up, but then I left town. So I don't know what's going on with the hummingbirds. But anyway, any of those of you who are interested in the hummingbirds, we got several videos on this channel showing the building of the nest, then the first egg, and then the second egg being laid. Got some really close footage of it. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, today's show will be all about headlines. The headlines we're going to go over today. We're going to be kind of all over the place. There's a lot to cover. A lot's happened over the last couple days. And the big news, I think, is that Bo Jiden has picked up where Bobama left off with the events of 322. You can see at the top of your screen there. We're not going to talk about what happened on 322 other than that. We're going to use coded language. But basically what they're trying to tell us is that there was an event that took place on 322 in which 10 people perished. And this was in the state of Colorado. Now, what they're trying to tell us, there's not too many details. I don't even think they have a person. They have a person of interest, but we haven't seen pictures of this person yet. And they're trying to say he was like a homeless guy with no shirt, no shoes, and a beard. That just doesn't sound right to me. It almost sounds like this guy could be a patsy. And so they probably just grab some homeless guy out of an alley and go, oh, you're it. So we got to keep our eyes peeled on this. Unfortunately, we can't talk about these too much anymore. But here's what's going on. They're trying to say that this is the 7th, we're going to call them ScrewTings instead of what they're called, mass ScrewTings. Because we all get screwed after these things happen, pretty much. And they're trying to say that there have been 7 events in 7 days. The last one being this event. And so that's a little bit weird, right? Because just yesterday we were talking about this. Here's the thumbnail from yesterday's show. And this guy was a teeterist in a show that we decoded called Condor. And they took pictures of this guy. And there you see he's at 77 degrees north latitude. Or, I'm sorry, this is a coordinate in the GPS coordinate of where they took the pictures of him. And this guy has the same birthday as the Don. So there's something weird going on. 7 in 7 days. And one of these actually happened not too long after I was in Stockton. So there you go. I guess 5 people went down. My mom did not mention this to me, by the way. So that's a little bit weird. So 7 in 7 days, that's 77, of course, and the last one happening yesterday. There were others outside of this earlier than the last 7 days. January 9th, 24th, 2nd. So basically what's happening is Bo Jiden is picking up where Bobama left off, of course, because basically what they're doing is they're ramping this thing up to reopen the debate to take away your means of self-defense. Now let's get into some of these other headlines. Now, even though you see my news feed comes in through Yahoo just because I have an email account there, but the sources of these stories are not Yahoo stories. Like this is an AP story, for instance. Yahoo is just a portal. Now let's take a look at this. This story is of interest because this is where my journey for truth pretty much started. My YouTube channel started around the time of this event here. And we're going to call this a runathon instead of what you see on the screen there. We're going to call it the Boston Runathon. All right. And like any good New World Order puppet, their job is to tie up loose ends. And the Boston Runathon was one such loose end. Now, we had covered this story where this guy, who was supposedly the one who did it, just a boy pretty much, they're trying to say, well, he had beat his rap on the death penalty. He had beat it. And now, guess who has come back around to try to reinforce this guy dying? It would be the T-Man himself. He filed an appeal to carry out the capital punishment on this guy, tying up loose ends. You got to tie up loose ends because some of these people are well-versed and or could be threatening to come forward with their defense that would be to the point or say something that the New World Order does not want to be said, right? We all know this guy was a patsy. And so why is the T-Man trying to wipe this guy out? Those of us that were in the truth community at this time when the runathon happened knew this guy was a patsy. Why? Because there were guys in tactical gear at the Cakewalk Runathon walking all around with weird backpacks. Remember that? So when the T-Man does stuff like this, it only confirms everything that we have suspected of him. Why would he care that this guy gets this? Why would he move forward with this? Now, I'd have to give this speech over and over again, but I got to give it again because there's people that are still aggravated thinking that I'm picking on the T-Man. You guys, some of the things that he has done are still trickling over into now. And so we've got the VC agenda. That was what he put in place. We've got all these other things that Bo Jiden is still working on. Their love for a certain country and allegiance to a certain country over the interest of our own. It's all still happening. Nothing has really changed. A couple of hot button issues have been reversed. We're going to talk about some of those today, but really that's all part of the agenda too. Not to mention, we're always going to find hindsight pre-programming that we, in some of these shows, some of the shows that we miss, like for instance, Condor. Do people not want me to cover Condor just because it makes the T-Man look bad? Of course we have to cover it. And this guy had the same birthday as the Don in the film. They showed his ID. So what am I supposed to not cover that? So if you're still getting triggered by this, that means you're still in the right-left paradigm. If you're still angry that I'm making Trump look bad, then you're still in the right-left paradigm, okay? Because much of what he put in place is still happening right now. Now, when that stops, in our current situation is not being influenced by the past, then we will cover him less. But as you guys all know who come to the channel, I give fair weight. I cover Bo Jiden just as much as I do the T-Man. We uploaded a funny video making fun of his mic gaffe. And we're going to talk about him today. We're going to talk about how unfairly they're changing the word deportation into expulsion to make Bo Jiden look better. So I have zero tolerance. If someone says, one guy says, I'll come back when you're done talking about the T-Man. Well, you know what? Don't ever come back. We don't need you here on this channel because we are providing fair balance. All these people are related. And if you're still angry about me covering stuff that the T-Man has done or is doing or will do, then you're still in the right-left paradigm. You're getting triggered because you want to defend him. So I have to give that speech because new people that come to the channel, as soon as they hear a criticism of the T-Man, they just run away. Whereas they don't sit and wait and listen and see that we treat Bo Jiden and the Clintrons and all of them just the same. They're all part of the same club. That's the whole point of all this. So, here's the problem with Bo Jiden. He's intentionally dull and retard. Don't use that word. That's not a good word to use. He's intentionally substandard. It's almost like picking on a person with special needs. You can't do that because this is what he does. He's portrayed that. So what do? We look at his overall choices that are probably being made above his head, right? And of course, I'm sure that characters will emerge from the programming, right? The programming matrix, which is all we do on this channel. There will be characters that emerge that probably are metaphors for Bo Jiden before he ever became president. We'll be on the lookout for that. If you guys see anything like that, send it to me, and I'll review different series and TV shows to see if that is in fact the case. So that's where we're at with all this. Okay. So Jiden's a puppet. He's a huge puppet, and he doesn't really say anything of substance. Anything that he does say, you can't hold him at his word because he doesn't even know what he's saying, right? But even with that, we are still covering his moves. Now, what else do we have here? Now, what is the main goal of the right and the left together? Working together, their main goal is to keep the anger and division going so that you and I can't come together on something as simple as resisting the VC. You ever wonder why we can't all come together about that? It's because they've got us divided. The T-Man made it and is now starting to endorse it. And the B-Man, Bo Jiden, is enforcing it, of course, and wanting it to go mainstream. So it's a bipartisan effort. And if we could all come together and understand that instead of being divided by politics and getting mad because someone's picking on someone, then we could actually make some change. Okay? So they want to divide. And this is why the mainstream has renamed the act of deporting somebody into a different term. They just changed the language. I've never heard this term used before. Expulsion? I mean, like, what are we in school? Last time I heard this term was when I was in high school. When someone got expelled for, wiping poop across the bathroom or something. I don't know. But now all of a sudden we magically have a new term. It's almost laughable. This particular article talks about Bo Jiden stepping up family expulsions. Basically, he's deporting people, and he's on track to deport more people than the T-Man even did. Why? Because he opened his big mouth and told everybody to show up, and that basically gave the inference. This is so funny because this is almost a mirror of what happened at the Capitol. What they accused the T-Man of doing. You caused people to come with your language. And look at Bo Jiden's doing the exact same thing, causing people to come with his language, and now we have a mirror event. I don't even know what you call this, but it's like a glitch in the matrix, like some kind of reality. I mean, it could have all been planned, but think about the juxtaposition of these two events. The rushing of the border because of someone's speech, and the rushing of the Capitol because of someone's speech. This is just crazy. Now, Bo Jiden is deporting people by the thousands, just like T-Man did, but they're renaming it expulsions. I mean, and the article, you can't even find the word deportation anywhere in this article. They intentionally left it out because expulsion sounds a whole lot better than deportation. And this is a glitch in the matrix. This is the stuff we find on this channel. This is why you guys come here, because we find their little mind control mechanisms, we call them, where they try to manipulate your mind with words and images, and we catch it and we bust them red-handed. So, you guys, both sides deport people. This has been going back all the way to when this started becoming a problem, right after the Reagan years. I think Reagan was doing it too. And So they all do it. They have to, because there's no way they can just let people come in. They pretend like they want to let people come in, like Bo Jiden. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want an unsustainable amount of people to come into this country. I'm right-leaning when it comes to that in my ideology in terms of immigration, okay? But what is really happening here? We know both sides do this, and they talk a big game, and yes, the T-Man did build a wall, but did he really? There's big holes in it. And we're told he wasn't able to finish it. And then Bo Jiden stopped the progress of it, which sent a message to the people to keep on coming, right? But understand that all of this is mental manipulation. The wall wasn't completed on purpose because it was allowed to be opened to then keep the divide going. And they just simply pivot the issue to piss off each side is what they're doing. To make you hate each other. To make it a hot button issue. To make it an issue that they can draw votes from. Because one appears to be doing something about it and the other does not. And look at it like this. There's a big chessboard. And they have to maintain a certain amount of pieces on the board for each side. They have to make the game appear to be fair, but it has to be perfectly split and divided. They gotta have 12 chess pieces per side. And if one side gets 8 chess pieces and the other side gets 20 chess pieces, then it doesn't make a perfectly divided country, which then they cannot they cannot perfectly manipulate. Okay? And if you, any of you that know about Vegas know that the odds have to be 50-50 in order for Vegas to make money. And it's no different with politics. If we aren't perfectly divided, then they cannot efficiently manipulate us. I hope that's making sense. So they put these different issues on each side to build the chessboard. So one of the issues that is more a right-leaning issue that people on the right, which are the southern states, right, they are led to believe that Republicans have their best interests at heart when it comes to securing the border. But notice how the problem has never gotten fixed. We went through several eras of Republican presidents, none of which have fixed the problem. They don't fix it on purpose because they need you on that side of the chessboard to manipulate you, to keep us divided from the other side, you see. And they maintain these hot button issues, and they maintain their inability to effectively solve the problem on purpose. It's all intentional. Now, there's probably some book somewhere that explains how the NWO works and how they can maximize their level of control through mental manipulation. I'm sure it's written down somewhere. But these are our observations over the last 10 years we've been on YouTube and looking at these stories about how they do this. I've seen this issue and other issues like the termination issue of children in the womb. I've seen those issues just go on and on and on and on and never, ever, ever be solved. And anytime they feel like they're losing control, they'll step up their game and pretend like they're just on the verge of solving it, right? Like with the T-Man, oh, he's going to load up the Supreme Court and they're going to change it finally. But then it never gets solved. So hopefully that's all making sense. Now, so they pretend that they're handling the issue way differently than the other political party. And basically what they've done with this border issue is to aggravate the T-Man supporters by pretending to whitewash or overlook the very same actions of deportation that Bo Jiden is doing, that the T-Man got roasted for, but then now magically the people on the left are not roasting Bo Jiden for doing the exact same thing T-Man did. It's meant to incite anger. So don't give into it. Don't give into the manipulation. Understand that neither side will ever solve the problem. Neither side will ever win, and it's designed to be that way. Now I'm going to check in with you guys and we'll get into this next story. Thanks everybody for showing up this morning. Now, on to the next story. And the mainstream media continues to just roast Florida. They're just roasting them for trying to go back to normal. Miami Beach declares spring break emergency. Oh, it's an emergency. Clear the beaches. You irresponsible, un-VC'd crowds of people who just are pretending like there's no spamdemic. Now, the big white elephant in the room is that Florida never saw a large surge of some out of control outbreak. They never saw it, despite taking this whole scamdemic so lightly. So, what is the problem that the mainstream has with spring break and all these people assembling? Well, let's get down to the root of this. Why are they trying so hard to shame people who are gathering for spring break? I mean, think about that for a second. What's the big deal? Why? It's because large gatherings will not produce a surge in the virus. And they know that they'll have to somehow explain that away. You see, they're not quite done getting as many people as they can VC'd. They still got hundreds of millions of people that have to be convinced that they got to go get this VC or it's the end of the world, right? And they don't want these large amounts of people gathering without masks and all this and not distancing, because then when everybody goes home and they can't find these numbers and everyone realizes it's safe and they don't need it, then guess what? Who loses? Pharma, to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. And we're going to get into that in a couple stories later on about exactly how much money these pharma companies are making. And now we have a conflict of interest because pharma has all this money to convince and put pressure on news outlets to keep this thing going so that the pharma companies can continue to make money. And stuff like this, these people coming out for spring break, that's not part of the program. They got to shut that down right away. Okay. Now, let's get into this next story. And this is the PTBs, powers that be. And they're laying into Europe too, who is standing up to Big Pharma as well. And they're calling these countries who refuse AstraZeneca's VC, they're calling them herd mentality countries. They've actually have the gall to try to flip the script and basically make it sound like people who don't believe in the VC are suffering from the herd mentality, which is exactly the opposite of the truth. Those who are going to get the VC are the ones who are suffering from the herd mentality. Look at this. Forget about herd immunity in Europe. This week it appeared herd mentality was the dominating force in the battle against CV19. So this is what's going on. A lot of these countries pulled out. They're like, no, we're not going to give this to our people. Only 5% of people in Europe have actually had the VC. Now understand that a lot of these European countries have historically rejected VCs. Okay. Brandy Vaughn was one such person who illustrated this to us. She talked about how a lot of these European countries reject this. They also reject Monsanto and other things like that. They're a little bit more understanding and awake than we are here in the States. And so now they're getting punished for it. To date, less than 5% of the citizens in Europe have been fully VC'd, compared to 13% in the US. So, this is what's going on. Shame, shame, shame on you for not taking this seriously. Now, this next story is probably the most important story of today. And this tells us the truth about what's really going on with pharma and the incentive, the conflict of interest to keep this going, to not allow people to get together, even though it's probably safe. A multi-billion-dollar question. How long do CVVCs last? Americans have received more than 120 million VC doses. Another 2.4 million were administered each day. Within the next few months, every adult who wants to be VC'd will. But there's a big unanswered question that affects anyone who receives the VC. How long will provide protection? Now, billions of dollars are on the line. Pfizer, BioNTech, the first to win U.S. emergency use authorization for the CVVC. In February, Pfizer estimated that the VC would generate sales of $15 billion this year, based on supply deals in place at the time. Do you see the problem here? Wait a minute. Weren't they not supposed to be making money on this? Now all of a sudden they are. Remember in the beginning we were told this is just, they're going to get a check to produce these, but it's going to be free. And this isn't a profit thing, so don't you worry. This isn't about pharma companies making profit, but that's exactly what's happening. Now, they're saying here that since then, the two companies have received additional orders, 100 million more doses for the U.S. and 200 million additional doses for the European Union. These deals should boost sales above $20 billion. So it just goes on to talk about all the money that they are making. So let's get into this next article here. Now, this article shows the manufactured crisis in full effect. And they try to suggest here, it says, despite the U.S. outpacing most countries in terms of the rollout, they're still saying it's not enough. They want us to believe that despite the falling death rates, that the new cases are plateauing. This doesn't make any sense. The new cases are plateauing. Wouldn't the death rate follow that? That's simple statistics. And so, of course, these are those same wonky tests, inaccurate tests, and that they want us all to forget about. So, this is the headline on where we're at with the VC rollout. U.S. rushes to expand eligibility in a race against time. Unreal. It says officials in at least 18 states have committed in recent days to opening CVVC appointments to all adults. So here's the trend. A lot of these states are opening it to all adults. See, they already tried to do their whole shortage game because, unfortunately, we as human beings, if we see something flying off the shelves or we see something that only certain people are allowed to get, we want it too. That's our consumer mentality. And this is hundreds of years of programming. This is why they have those Saturday morning shows with the Barbie dolls and the cartoons and the cereals. Okay? It's all meant to instill from you into you at a very early age that you need something that everyone else has. And the VC is no different. Now that that's wearing off, they're like, okay, now we got to kick this into high gear. Let's make it available for everybody. It says in Ohio, all adults will be allowed to seek shots starting March 29th. That's the 88th day of the year. That's my birthday. In Connecticut by April 5th, and all these other states are following suit. But even as the pace of VCs has accelerated to 2.5 million a day nationwide, the country finds itself in a precarious point in the spam-demic. Cases, hospitalizations, deaths have all fallen sharply from the January peaks, yet infection levels have plateaued this month. That doesn't make any sense at all, but whatever. So, what else do we have going on here? Getting toward the end of the show here. Now, I don't know what I'm going to decode next. I got a couple of things pulled up here. One of you guys asked me to decode The Giver, which is a film. There's a series called The Chosen One. I might look at that too. Usually I'll try to watch at least one episode of these series. And if it looks like it's going to have some stuff in it, then I'll decode the whole season. Also, The Kingsman Secret Service. If you guys want me to look at that, I don't think I've decoded that one yet. So that's just what's on the horizon for that. Now, this last story is all about the Keystone pipeline. Remember, Bo Jiden stopped it in its tracks? And the backstory with this is we were energy dependent, and we are right now. And everyone was applauding the T-Man for making that happen. And now Bo's policies on energy threaten the consumer, which is us, with soaring gas prices. In fact, we saw a spike in gas prices just when he stopped the Keystone pipeline. Just because of, when you're talking about investing in the future markets, a lot of people pulled out. And so or they anticipated this with the gas supply. And so we saw an immediate spike in gas prices. So this signals the fact that we might be energy dependent again on other people's oil. And this also signals that we could be approaching a forced electric car future. So what's going on now? Well, the states are starting to sue Bo Jiden to get this pipeline going again. Obviously, this would be a big moneymaker for some states. It would make them wealthy, kind of like similar to what happened in Texas, where they started really going for their energy supplies and stuff, which made Texas a very huge economy in America because of all the oil jobs, right? Well, all these other states that surround the pathway of the Keystone Pipeline, they want that work. They want those jobs. They want that. They want to be like Texas and other states that have their economies based in oil. But let's read between the lines on this. Now, I want to be clear. I don't want to drive an electric car. I mean, until the day where they're the same price to buy and to fix as a gas car, I don't want an electric car. They're smaller. They don't work well in cold weather. It basically makes it so that you're forced to be at the mercy of whatever electricity is going to cost to charge the thing. Okay. Or the cost of these batteries that go in the cars are very, very expensive. Some of them are 10 grand, some of these batteries. And I don't ever want this technology of electric cars to be forced on us. And there's different ways to force this kind of technology. They can artificially increase gas prices to the point where it just doesn't even make sense to own a gas vehicle anymore. Let's say gasoline went up to $10 a gallon. Of course, that would force people onto electric cars. And that, we could see the day where that happens as they try to push through the electric car agenda. We could also see a gasoline either alleviated altogether, or you could only get it under very, very special circumstances with some kind of licensing or whatever. I mean, all these things are possibilities for the future in terms of gasoline-powered vehicles. But I think people should have a choice. As long as oil is coming out of the ground, I believe that people should have a choice of what they choose to drive, electric or gasoline. And I'll tell you why. Because an electric car future, to me, equals control. It means dependence on the grid, which of course we've seen the powers that be turn on and off the grid at will whenever they want. So you become at the mercy of them, right? Now, man has been burning things and making fire since the dawn of time, right? I believe it's a right to be able to burn a fire. This is what makes me so mad about California, where you can't burn a fire in your own fireplace. Now, if there was some kind of free energy that could power all of our electric cars, I would get an electric car tomorrow. But you and I all both know that will never happen. They'll never, ever give us that kind of freedom. It will always come at a cost. Energy will always cost something because that's how they control people. It'll be taxed, sold, manipulated, throttled, withheld until we all submit. So that leaves oil. And look, we can believe that, as soon as a Republican comes back in office, they'll just start the pipeline back up. And I want to believe that. But what I really think is happening here is it's another manipulation of the right-left paradigm. And they just dangle this carrot of the pipeline out there to keep people believing in the right-left paradigm. But their intention, the end game, is to have us all forced into electric cars. And there isn't anything Republicans are going to be able to do about it. We saw the same thing happen with the T-Man, how he sold out to Monsanto, said he had their back. The things that we really believe in, the Republicans don't have our back on. And I believe we are truly in the middle of a gradualistic agenda to phase out oil. And all this drama about the pipeline is just that. It's drama. And I'll be shocked if the pipeline ends up being built, or if it ends up contributing in any significant way to the amount of oil that we have in our country to be energy independent and shore up the oil-based future economy. I would be shocked if that happened, but I could be wrong. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, let's go back in here into the chat. That's pretty much the show for today. See what you guys have to say. Let's let this catch up a little bit. All right. It's going to take a while, I think. How are you guys doing today? Yeah, I got a lot of feedback from people about dreams. Like yesterday, we came on 322, and we were talking about dreams and the unsettled sleep, not being able to sleep through the night, waking up multiple times, just our sleep patterns being thrown off. Now, we did have the daylight savings change. That could have something to do with it, but a lot of you in the comments on yesterday's show were talking about experiencing the exact same thing, just having these bizarre dreams and not being able to sleep through the night. So I thought that was interesting. But, I cannot read that. That is going by super fast. So what have you guys been up to? Apparently there's a, an explosion of building going on in construction in Arkansas specifically. Talked to a contractor the other day, and he's like, everybody's busy. There's an explosion of work being done, and now the contractors are starting to inflate their prices, which is very sad to see that, kind of playing off of people that are getting stimulus checks and all of this. Things that used to cost one thing are now costing double that because everyone is just busy. And some guys are booked out all the way into next year. So it's kind of neat that we're at the forefront of that. We got in early before all that started to happen. But now people are heading for the hills. People are done being with, being, in these cities and being at the mercy of these governors, okay, where things can be easily enforced. You're in basically a grid where there's one way in and one way out, like one major road in and one major road out. And you're basically at the mercy and control of these people. And people are tired of it. They're tired of it. Yeah, Chris, lumber is skyrocketing. Red Pill State is in Arkansas now. Are you seeing the growth? Are you seeing it? Wow, Texas too. So this is a good thing that people are getting out. It's good because this is the Exodus. You guys, we were talking about this. We've been talking about it. It's called the spiritual Exodus. Remember I told you? We've been talking about this for about 3 years. Remember the crossing eclipses? And I said, this is the Exodus. This is the spiritual Exodus out of the cities. And I tried to tell all you guys. Remember? And now it's actually happening. Now, how would we have known that this was going to happen? It's because we're led by the Holy Spirit. And we know, and God is telling us, and he wanted you to get out too. And hopefully many of you did get out of these cities, because life's going to be a whole lot easier for you out on some acreage somewhere with some wood surrounding you and growing your own food and living on a property that you've already paid for and not having to mortgage, so that you have some kind of long-term security for your future. That's what God wanted for you. He doesn't want you at the mercy of some job that tells you, oh, you have to get a VC to come back to work. Or he doesn't want that for you. He wants you to be free spiritually and mentally. So the Exodus is happening, just like we said it would. I love each and every one of you. We'll be back on here tomorrow. I'll start getting into some of these other series today, and we'll get something uploaded for you guys tomorrow. I love each and every one of you. Have a great day.